never sleeps, pal.
Welcome to Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and what makes them do what they do. A wise person once said, unless you're waking up in the middle of the night taking notes on your startup, that's not what you're cut out for. You don't pick your business idea picks you. How does this happen? And what keeps entrepreneurs going back for more? This is our third episode of Money Never Sleeps. For this episode, we sat around the table with Niamh Bushnell, the founder and CEO of TechIreland, a not-for-profit venture mapping all of the product innovation in Ireland and delivering the output digitally. Originally from Ireland and a serial entrepreneur, Niamh escaped from New York after 16 years to become Dublin's first commissioner for startups in 2014. In this episode, Niamh tells us the story of what prompted her to launch TechIreland, which is a massive undertaking and a true labor of love. This was my first time meeting Niamh after nearly introducing myself in Dogpatch Labs from time to time. And although Owen already knew her story, interviewing her was a unique experience for us both. So, on with the show. Hey guys, all right, thanks. We're on Money Never Sleeps here live at Dogpatch Labs. I'm Pete Townsend. I've got Owen Fitzgerald here with me as well. Say hello, Owen.
Hello.
And also we have Niamh Bushnell here with us today. Hello,
Hi, everybody.
Niamh. Great. Thanks for coming, Niamh. Wonderful to have you here. What we'd like to do, just to get some context about you, just tell us a bit about what you're doing right now and what you're up to.
Right now, and as of last April, April 2017, I am the founder and CEO of TechIreland. And TechIreland is on a mission to empower people and companies to learn about and connect with Irish innovation of all kinds. And we can get into that in more detail if you like. So we are a not-for-profit that is working to tell the story of Irish innovation globally through data.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool.
And why are you doing this?
Because until TechIreland existed, there was no information about Irish innovation in a data-driven way. It was really difficult, and in fact it would just happen by happenstance or coincidence that you would learn about companies in different towns and cities and locations around Ireland that were doing things in exciting areas of emerging technology like AI or IoT, or if you wanted to find out what fintech companies, for example, had raised funding in the last couple of months, you would have had a really difficult time finding out that information. Yeah, so TechIreland exists for students, for job seekers, for entrepreneurs, for investors, for talent overseas, looking at Ireland, to tell the story of Ireland through all of the different lenses, so that people can go, you know what, there's a lot of innovation in these particular areas in Ireland and in these particular cities and towns and clusters of Ireland, and we can be part of that, and we can not only have a job out of that, but we can have a career out of that, or we can not only, invest in putting an office somewhere, but we can attract other people and leverage and lean off the other companies and the talent and the smarts and the expertise and experience that's there. So we're a very small country. We're known for very specific pieces of our reputation. Innovation is not our middle name, even though it's much better earned than it is known. And really it's to kind of say, hey, Ireland is big and bright and bold and brave in areas of innovation that you would have never imagined, and that's TechIreland.
Okay. And how did you get into it? I know you said you launched the business a year ago, was it?
Yeah, so TechIreland actually started as a project, like all good businesses.
Yeah.
I was in the States for a long time, and I applied for a job back in Ireland called the Dublin Commissioner for Startups.
Yeah, I remember that.
Got that job back in August 2014, started the job in October 2014, came back from the States, and really that role was to be a voice and a platform for Dublin as a startup city and a tech city globally. And I soon discovered that it was quite difficult to tell that story without having more than anecdotes in my pocket, which is all I had. So I would go around, telling the story of Ireland, and particularly Dublin as our capital city, as an innovation city. And people would say, well, Niamh, that's fabulous. Now, Dublin's a great fintech city. That's great. Or it's a great, there's a lot of AI happening in Dublin. Fabulous. Well, for example, put some numbers behind that for me. So how many fintech companies have raised over 5 million in the last 6 months?
Yep.
and I would be, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Because that information just wasn't available. And so for me, in my role, it was important that I had strategic data like that. But, bring it all the way back to the job seeker or to the student who's going, well, should I look out for a startup job, or should I, go and try and get a job in a corporation? Or what is the landscape like in Ireland for innovation? And trying to find that information in a way that's company by company, that's multinational by multinational, that's investor by investor. What is the truth behind the nice stories and anecdotes that we tell? Well, here it is. Here's the data. Rock in and connect with those companies and individuals.
And I'm totally getting some passion and energy from you right off the bat on this. Where did that come from?
Well, I think it came from living in the States for such a long time, to be honest with you. I've always been very passionate about being Irish, but it's only when you live abroad. And I lived in France, in college I lived in France for a year, I lived in Italy for a year, I actually lived in Spain for a year after that. So I speak a couple of languages, and the irony of the whole thing is that my friends, when I was a kid, used to call me the 200% European, because I was always, living in a different country and speaking other languages and coming back with all these like annoying tics where I use my hands a lot and stuff, And then all of a sudden I moved to the States, and then I was gone, 16 years I was there. And I think, having worked in the technology sector actually since I left college, I knew that Ireland had a lot to say on innovation. But in the US, we weren't known for that. And we were known for other things that kind of surprised me. At the obvious stuff like the green fields and the whiskey and the food and, the friendly welcome, all of that stuff that we're very proud of as well. But it was a really uphill struggle to kind of go, actually, you know what, these are, they're great Irish companies who are building technology off the bat back in Ireland. And, people didn't really believe that story, I guess. So, I worked for Enterprise Ireland in the States, first of all, for 6 years. Then I worked for an Irish company called Orbiscom, a payments company that were fabulous, way ahead of their time, but just at the right time for the market in terms of way ahead of their time technology-wise, but ahead of the market in terms of their offering. And they were, I worked with Citibank, with Bank of America, MBNA at the time. I worked with, loads of different interesting organizations and banks in the States on behalf of Orbiscom, and then they were bought by MasterCard. So, a great Irish story, and now we have R&D, the Centre of R&D with Gary Lyons, who is the CEO of Orbiscom, sitting right here in Dublin. So stories like that, and then I talked to you earlier on about MoneyMate, another interesting Irish company that's been acquired in the fintech space that I worked with. So, but telling that story to an international audience just wasn't hitting home. And I felt, as an Irish person who was part of the expat community and part of our diaspora, very passionate about letting people know that Ireland was fabulously proud and excited about having the LinkedIns and the Facebooks and the eBays and the Etsy's and all of the obvious names that we talk about in the born on the internet companies here, and obviously before them even the other technology companies and pharmaceutical companies, etc. We're fabulously proud and excited about the value that these FDI companies have brought to Ireland. But there's a massive Indigenous Irish story that we don't pay attention to at home, and it turned out we didn't pay attention to it abroad either. So I think I came back to Ireland really infused by this pride of Ireland and this passion for telling a story that I knew to be the truth, and I wanted to help with my own voice and my own experience, but I also needed tools to do that in a way that added more credibility, and TechIreland is a big piece of that.
Gotcha. You've mentioned the word story 3 times in the last 30 seconds. Do you like storytelling?
I tell stories to my son every night in bed. Yes, I love stories.
Do you read books or make stories up?
Oh no, both. Well, both, but mainly we read books now because he's kind of done with mummy's stories. It's much more devious than the stories I can tell at this point in terms of the books. He even prefers the anti-heroes. I'm kind of getting a little concerned, but that's a whole other topic. But I think stories are the thing. People connect with people. People are interested in relationships. They're interested in the friction and the compatibility and the harmony and the chemistry that happens between people, and that's why I like stories.
And how then, I suppose, on the story side, does that tie in with the tech or the data side of TechIreland? I'd imagine a lot of the data helps you tell the story, which is more powerful in a lot of ways than the data itself.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do now. So, I mean, year one was all about the data, and getting the data to a point where people would actually quote the data and use the data and say, well, according to TechIreland, 25% of X equals, whatever. And we got there in year one, which is just finished, really. Kind of April, we celebrated our first anniversary in operation. And now it's really about lifting that up and telling stories of individual entrepreneurs in Ireland, or clusters of founders and leaders in business in Ireland, and connecting back in the data to that. So that's actually through partners, because TechIreland really wants to stick to its knitting and be a data. That's the gap that we filled. And one of my philosophies, particularly in this kind of passion for Ireland role that I've been in and that I'm still in, is filling a gap and not doing anything that other people can or will do, because then you're just duplicating, and we have a lot of problems with duplication already in Ireland. So I want to stick to TechIreland's knitting and being a data provider, but we do want to plug that data into people who are telling stories and enhance their stories with data. So for example, KPMG, they tell great stories about Ireland in terms of, Choose Ireland being one of their campaigns that they've worked with Enterprise Ireland and the IDA on. And, they support a lot of different events that happen in Ireland. They have an Inspire series that's going on right now at the moment in the RHA, where they're inviting people to come in and tell stories about their entrepreneur journey in Ireland. And we're helping them by saying, we have data that you can partner with the stories that you're telling through your events, through your publications, through your reports, and we can help you with that data piece of it, so that it makes the story bigger and broader and more interesting and more colourful. And it's great to have a data foundation. So the stories, I tell stories, but TechIreland gives the data that enhances stories that others are telling. So we really see our story side to be a partnership piece of what we do, as opposed to something that we deliver ourselves.
You did a coffee table book, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
That's a story.
It's really cool.
It's a great story, and that's a funny story, because that's the kind of, so we were doing all of these and continue to do all of these digital reports, some of which we do for clients who pay us for them, so they're private pieces of work that are custom built, and some of them are digital reports that we then, use with the public. And, Owen has been involved, for example, in helping us tell the story of fintech in Ireland and putting snapshots together that people can download, and reports on fintech that people can download for free. So when it came to looking at all of those downloads and doing an analysis of it, who cares about this stuff? Who's checking this stuff out? And looking at the thousands of people who had downloaded reports that we had done at the end of the year around innovation in Ireland, it just came to me. I mean, governments all over the world, investors all over the world, talented people all over the world, downloading the stuff. It was like, there's more than just digital reports in this. There's a book. So really, the coffee table book is an amalgamation and a physical representation of what we had already done digitally with people's help, like Owen and many of our other advisors. So it really was a kind of an overnight thing of me emailing the board and going, hello, friends, how about we make all of this stuff into a book? And them going, oh God, okay, fair enough, off you go. So that's how it happened. The work was already to the greatest extent done, and it was really just bringing out something that I envisaged then being on coffee tables all over Ireland and all over the world. And it turns out that that's exactly what's happened. We just did a deal this morning with a hotel that I probably shouldn't mention the name of here in Ireland, who are going to be putting the Innovation Nation book, which is the name of the book, into every hotel room that they have.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, which is so cool, to think that people will walk into one of our biggest and most tech-connected hotels in the country, and people will walk in there, whether they're coming in because they're working for Accenture or for Google or for Enterprise Ireland or for one of our startups, or they're coming to speak at a conference, and they will have Innovation Nation right there beside their bed, and they can spend the evening looking at it and going, wow, this is why I'm here, because of this innovation in Ireland, which they never would have done with a digital report.
Yeah, and you get the stories, and you get the stories that you can then relay to other people. And
absolutely.
That's where things really come across.
And that's what I love about a book. They can flick through, it's 140 pages long, but they can flick through a couple of pages and they've got the message. The message is, there's a lot here. There's a huge amount going on. Pick pick the part of the story you're interested in. You know, I've seen people like take out the book and then take out their phones and take photos of pages and just kind of go, just got to remember that company. Okay, great. Just took that photograph. You know, the same thing that I do when I like a nice bottle of wine, right? It's like take a photograph of the label.
Yeah.
People are doing that with the book.
Do you use Vivino?
And that's, I do sometimes, yeah. Or I use O'Brien's.
I just love the tech side of it, right? Where you take a picture of the label and it tells you what it is. It tells you what price it is.
Yeah.
So when I get, I can't believe I'm saying this, but when I get wine gifts from people, I take a picture of the label to see how much they actually spent on me.
You're cheap, Peter.
Oh, I'm terrible.
You're terrible.
I'm terrible.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm getting out of you. I'm getting passion. I'm getting energy. I'm getting commitment. I'm getting network, right? I'm getting extroversion. What are some of the personality traits that keep you doing this, that keep doing what you do?
You know, I mean, I think one of them is not thinking too hard about anything, actually, in some ways, and it sounds like a little bit contrarian, but a friend of mine told me years ago, think properly but not too much. And it's always been kind of like a guiding principle of mine. It's like, think, plan, but don't go as far as like oh God, if that doesn't work, or how am I going to take on this huge thing? So I think and plan to an extent, and then I just execute, learn, execute, pivot. So, you know, and I think that there's definitely pros and cons in that, because I think, you know, a friend of mine who worked for a large multinational here in Ireland, a tech company, and then moved to Switzerland, she said, you know, on the one hand, in Ireland, we don't, and this, I think this kind of embodies my mentality, for better and for worse. She said, you know, in Ireland, when I was heading up the Irish operation, we didn't go long-term plans. We didn't kind of put down on paper kind of like 3, 5-year, 10-year plans in a lot of detail, but we did execute and got lots and lots done. Whereas now I'm in Switzerland, and we just spend the whole bloody time planning. You know, and she's like, but on the end of that, then we have these plans that we stick to for long periods of time, and maybe we'll end up being more successful ultimately than the Irish operation, but it remains to be seen. So, you know, I come from a culture of execution, learning on the go, not thinking too deep or too hard, and just learning as I do things. And I think passionate people are like that, tend to be like that, and I think there's pros and cons to it, honestly, but it's just the way I am.
Who is it that said life is what happens when you're making other plans?
Yeah, I don't know.
Was that John Lennon or someone? It
Yeah.
was someone
was the name
very
of his
well
band?
known. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they were fairly big.
They weren't.
It wasn't the Who anyway.
No.
That's his ringtone.
Yeah,
Everywhere
that's
we go.
me. Yeah, it is. It freaks people out.
I suppose, like, you know, you're clearly an entrepreneur and have that mindset. I suppose, like you said, there's pros and cons. What do you think is it that, you know, you've learned about yourself, and I suppose on this journey with TechIreland or in the past, you know, that you then have applied kind of going forward to improving how you work and how you deliver things?
Yeah, I mean, I think really the lesson that I'm learning all the time is about connecting and partnering and getting feedback. Because no matter how much of that you do, you're probably not doing enough of it. And, you know, when I think of doing something, I think of how we can do it and when we can do it. And I always have to then remind myself to think, who else can either help us do it for us, do it instead of us, lead us in it. And I think that's really, really important. And I think in Ireland, because I don't know other ecosystems, obviously, as well as I know the Irish ecosystem, none of us think enough about, you know, we're not islands. Ourselves, or our companies, or our entities, we are connected, and if we can do something that is obviously what we're going to do, even if we do something in isolation as an island, we kind of think, okay, well, that's going to benefit the community, so that's ticking a box and that's important. Obviously we wouldn't do it at all or think about it at all if it wasn't benefiting the community, so that's a done deal. But how can we make sure that it benefits the community from the get-go as opposed to just from the output? So how can we make sure that all the way through, from the initial idea and concept all the way through to the output and the benefit, the ultimate benefit, that there are people coming along on that journey and enhancing that journey and owning parts of that journey as we go. And that's the struggle, I think, of every day for me and for other people who get very excited and passionate about things, and for us as a country, because there are many ways in which we duplicate and layer over each other in different ways. And really, we're small, we have limited resources and limited scale, and agility comes from going plug in here for that, plug in there for the other, plug in early and often, to get to an ultimate goal that will actually be bigger than whatever the positive output that it could have been that you did by yourself. So that's something, I look back on things even that we've done in the last year and gone, why didn't we plug in earlier to X or to Y, or, you know.
We need to think like an API.
Yes, I like that. Think like an API. Yeah, a human API. So that's always, you know, if there's anything that I kind of go, oh, you know, because most of the things you do are good, right? But how much better could they have been? How much more valuable to people could they have been? How many more people could have known about them? You know, and it's all about kind of just making that as part of the start and the inception of something as opposed to the end game.
Do you remember the toughest day you had in the last year? You don't need to tell me about it, but just create that little thing in your head.
You know, there's tough...
Professionally.
There's tough parts of every day. You know, but nothing is too tough to, you know, there's always tomorrow, right?
Right, and that's what I was going to say.
Thank God for tomorrow.
That toughest day that you've had, and then tomorrow is one step tougher.
Yeah.
How do you keep going?
You've got to, I mean, it's the classic cliche, you got to love what you do. You got to believe in it. I think, first of all, you've really got to believe that you're making a difference. And if that difference makes a difference to you personally, then you're good to go.
How do you know? How do you know you're making a difference?
Because people tell me all the time. And because, I mean, first of all, again, like, it really, I don't know if I can say, pisses me off when people don't know about Irish innovation. That pisses me off.
Use all the blue words you want.
Because that is kind of, you know, from the start of my career, I've been involved in that. And if people outside of here, and even here, don't know about it, that really annoys me. And so, and I take it on as our fault, by the way. It's not their fault. It's our fault that we're not telling a good enough story. We're not telling a consistent enough story, or a deep enough story, or an easy and simple enough story. So first of all, there's a need. So that need I know, and I've known that for decades at this point. Then are we fulfilling the need in a way that others aren't, and that's adding value to the overall thing? Yes, because nobody wants to do the job that TechIreland does. It's a manual, labour-intensive, massively prone to error job, and we are honing that down to a science, and we're still way on that journey. And so that's why, you know, and you know what, like, there's 9 of us. So, you know, we just had a team meeting this week and went out for dinner afterwards and celebrated the first anniversary of 3 of the 9 employees, and we're only a year old. So how cool is that? That's great.
And it must be great, I suppose, on one hand, because you get that feedback, so you know you're doing good on that big scale. But I suppose the other challenge is that it's on that big scale, which makes it harder to do. You know, it's, you know, whatever about delivering something within your organisation, like trying to deliver something about Ireland, you know, with buy-in from lots of different
Those
bodies.
are the down days when I feel like I want to step off what I call the national conversation. Because that can be quite tiring.
How do you bring it back?
You just sleep. Yeah.
No problem, sleep?
No problem. Great sleeper.
And who do you lean on, I suppose? It's something we always ask our entrepreneurs in terms of helping you get through those tough days. Yeah,
you know, I mean, outside of the amazingly supportive team that we've put together, and I feel so lucky that we have the people that we have on board. My husband, you know, he's a musician. He knows nothing about any of this stuff and doesn't really want to know, but he's in a whole other world of, you know, creative. He's in a creative world, and he's just been close to me on everything that I've done, you know, since I met him, 17 years ago now. And he just has to listen to me at night time or in the morning time, and he just brings it all down to earth and balances it out. And I've always been romantically with non-business people, pretty much. I don't think I've ever gone out with anybody, with a guy in a suit ever in my whole life. And now looking back, I kind of go, well, that's probably why, because I'm quite creative, but I also love the cut and thrust of business, and having that balance close to me in my life is really important, and allows me to be calmer and to have a bigger perspective and get something back from it too that I won't get in my work environment.
And that's really interesting, because previous guests we'd have on would take a different approach, whereby getting their part. We had Brian Norton on before. He spoke about having his wife now involved in his new business, because it brings them somewhat closer together in that sense. So I suppose this is the complete opposite, and it's interesting to see that what works for one doesn't work for the other.
Yeah, I guess the closeness is probably the same, has the same feeling of benefit and the same actual benefit, but the approach is different. Yeah, I mean, creative people just do not think. It's amazing, and I love that. I mean, such a different approach to everything. From washing the dishes to going for a drive to making an investment, anything. It's so crazily different the way he thinks to the way I think, that it's just it makes it fun too.
It's cool.
Yeah, two of my favorite actors both have what they call civilian wives, right? So George Clooney with his wife, and Matt Damon as well. And I get that. There's something about that you just don't want someone in that business to be the person you go home to every day.
Yeah.
Was your husband, you said your husband's in a band or a musician?
Yeah, he's both. He's in a band now in Dublin. I mean, he had to leave his band in the States to come here, but he's now in a band here. Yeah, Nocturnes. They play a lot, actually. They play, they've played in, I've forgotten the name of the place on the Keys. In any case, they play, and we have gigs in the house, actually. We've had 2 gigs in the house and 40 people kind of coming to see them play. And
all right.
We do all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, and this is a real theme. Like you said, we had Brian Norton on episode 1. He's been in a band in college. Barry Brennan was on episode 2.
Plays a lot of instruments.
Plays instruments. His band is called Mechanical Death. Okay. And now Niamh,
How
your
positive.
husband. All right, so I think we got to get a little rock and roll show going here with Money Never Sleeps.
Yeah, well, Brian Caulfield came up with this great, because we were talking about, way back years ago in the States when I was involved. I'm an investor in an accelerator in New York called Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator. They're fantastic, ERA. They've done really, really well. But, back then when I was kind of working with all these founders as a mentor, I was kind of like, I'm sure you guys all have kind of like other talents and music and stuff. Why don't we just, we never did it. It was kind of an idea that I had to do a kind of a, Tech's Got Talent kind of a thing. And then I was telling Brian Caulfield, who's on my board, about it back here last year, and he was like, yeah, Tech's Got Talent, let's do it. So, of course we never did it, but absolutely, tech people who are involved, techies and people who are involved in business at all levels. There's so many guitars, trumpets and singing voices there, and groovy, other things going on, film and art and all of that stuff, and writing. We should bring all those people together.
Yeah, I think this is like a big weekend waiting to happen.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else that you? What's something that people don't know about you?
Can't tell you.
That's an interesting one. Is there something people don't know about you that you can tell us?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm pretty
open.
Pretty out there. It's very funny. People think I'm American, which I think is hilarious, because in the States people know that I am Irish.
Yeah.
But even still, we're home 4 years, and people are kind of like, so how long have you been in Ireland for? So yeah, so there's something that I don't know about myself that other people kind of say, is she American or is she Irish? I'm like, lads, in fairness,
You can't hear your own accent. I go back to Boston and people like, nice accent, Pete. Yeah. And then I come back over here and like, Pete, you've been here for 12 years. Why have you not got rid of that stupid Yank accent yet? And they call me a Yank. Any other American wouldn't have a problem with that besides me, because I'm a Boston Red Sox fan.
Oh, so is my husband. Red Sox and the Mets.
Yeah. And they're going to be playing in London, Red Sox and Yankees, next year.
Oh, right.
Got signed up for tickets for that.
Okay, we'll have to talk later.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
I think that's it. Listen, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Very welcome. And we'll catch up with you again. Thanks.
We'd like to thank Niamh for opening up her mind for the 3rd episode of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast brought to you by Owen Fitzgerald and me, Pete Townsend. We'd also like to thank Gav Timlin and Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. Finally, thanks to Dogpatch Labs for hosting us and for their unwavering support of the startup community in Dublin.
Money never sleeps, pal.